Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Autofocus from Podcast Videos. I'm Dan Kraft. Rick Galligan is not with us today, but we have Andy Wilson. Andy is the host of the Doing Business in Bentonville podcast, one of the clients here at Podcast Videos. As you can see, I'm repping both brands today.
I like your shirt.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And Andy, you came into podcasting sort of by accident. You were not a radio background or a heavily tech side guy.
No, totally accident. Yeah, absolutely. It's Eric Howardson, he told me one day, we met a few years ago, and he said, Andy, the future is podcast. I went, what? And I was doing a live event once a month, doing business in Bentonville, and we would have 100 people come. And when Eric said that to me, I thought, talk to me more.
And then live events became kind of a problem with COVID. And so the podcasting started to make sense.
He did. And he began to tell me how, it was the future. That's dial it back a couple of years. Now we know what's happened the last couple of years when it comes to podcasting.
Sure.
How popular it's become. Even now, people from all over the world, you're connecting with people from all over the world now on your schedule. And it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't come from a real heavy background in radio or tech.
No.
You run a podcast that is based on omni-channel retail and e-commerce, and that's based on your background in retail, not in podcasting or broadcast.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so wonderful about podcasting, Dan, is that my passion and my career was retail. And so now I have the opportunity to visit with guests from wherever, either physically or remote, and we can discuss the importance of retail, omni-channel, and what's happening and the changes happening in that space around the world. And so, it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And the shameless plug, of course, is that Podcast Videos handles all the rest of that tech stuff for you, so you don't have to.
Podcast Videos is awesome. And in fact, without Podcast Videos, there wouldn't be a show. And,
sure.
and while we're talking about that, I just want to call you out and say thank you for all the work you do for doing business in Bentonville. It's excellent. And when we get great views around the world, that would not happen without Podcast Videos and ultimately your hard work. Thank you.
Yeah. On behalf of the entire team, you're very welcome. A lot of the folks who do come in from a more technical background, and a lot of the guest hosts you have also, Scott Benedict has some broadcast background, but Josh Safran, Deanna Baker,
right.
These folks aren't professional broadcasters. They're subject matter experts that we put in front of a microphone, point a camera at them.
Right.
You just hit 100 episodes, by the way. A bar that only 5-point-something% of podcasters ever get to. Most of them give up before that.
Well,
and that includes the tech geek ones that came in knowing what they were doing.
When you told me that, I was blown away because through the time period that it took for us to do 100 podcasts. We just kept our head down. We just kept working. We kept bringing in great guests. We just stayed focused on the content, focused on the topic. We kept current in all of our conversations around this ever-changing space, as I mentioned. And, I think you're the one that called out and said, Andy, do you know you're X number away from 100? I went, stop. There's no way. And because that was never the point. The point was, let's just keep doing great work here together. And that's what happened.
And retail is a big, wide, ever-changing. You're not going to run out of ideas to talk about.
No, never. Because it's changing so rapidly every day. In fact, I just had a meeting and we talked about the fast pace of change that AI now is taking, that we now is integrated into omni-channel.
We had a meeting the other day about how AI can take some of the tech problems off my plate.
Yeah.
We're still working on that. Turns out if we could just get one to build my flowcharts, it would help. There've been some laughter in the office about that one.
Right.
So, but we talk about technical aspects. We think of technology, the recording, the programs we use. But from a technical aspect, we're also sitting here. We've got the mics, we've got the cameras. 100 episodes in, how much more comfortable do you feel, and why, than you did the first time you went, wait, what?
Well, yeah, you're right. You know, I didn't before. I would wake up early or restless thinking about this podcast. And, you know, I've learned a few things doing it. Number one, in my prep work, and I do a lot of prep work for every podcast because I think it's very interesting for me to have knowledge about the content, the subject, which helps me to have great questions. By doing that, I can relax with my guests because I do talk to my guests prior. We don't go through every question, but we do have a great conversation about the topics. And now I have relaxed where I can just have a conversation about it.
Do you almost forget the cameras are there sometimes?
Yeah, totally.
The mics are a little harder because they're sort of right in front of you, but
what podcast video does is they help with that process about so much because I know I can relax about the technology side. My prep is the content, and you know I try to do a good job prepping my guests so they're relaxed because they're not relaxed.
Some of them are pretty darn comfortable in front of the mic. Others, not at all.
More so or not because they don't do this regularly, and so I know that
leaning back and out of frame.
Yeah, and I know that feeling. And but you know now, but I do now. I'm excited about the upcoming, the podcasts that I have upcoming. I'm excited about those, and you know I've already spoken to my guests more than once. And so, you know, I'm already processing a bit of that conversation for ever come in here. And the other thing that makes it so great, the podcast videos does, is that they record it, and you all have great editors, in my opinion. And the editors have sort of learned us on a regular.
They've got a comfort level with you.
Yeah, and in fact, I was at a coffee shop next door. I'm sitting there prepping for a podcast, and this guy walks in. He walked over and said, "Excuse me," and because I was working, he said, "Excuse me." I went, "Yes," and he said, "You don't know me, but I know you." I said, "How do you know me?" He said, "Because I edit your podcast." I thought, and he said,
"You watch my podcast?" "No, you edit my podcast." "Oh,
it's
that's a smaller group."
Yeah, and he said, I said, "Okay, great. Yeah, I thanked him for I said, "Well, thank you for all your hard work." I said, "Now I have a question." And he said, "What?" I said, "How can I improve?" And because I'm talking to an expert there, and I want feedback about how I can improve.
And the editor is going to look at that from a different perspective than I would as the managing editor, than the audience would from a pro or amateur perspective.
Right. That's right.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations on 100 episodes.
Thank
Andy.
you, Dan.
And let's do 100 more.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's the deal. If you'll be with me, I'll do 100 more.
Done.
Okay, good. You all heard it.
I'm pretty sure that counts as a contract somewhere out there in the ether.
Let's go do it together.
Good deal.
Okay.
Guys, this has been Story Scaling from the non-technical expert, a perspective on how podcasting works anyway.
That's right.
Good deal. Now, before we go,
okay,
I do have one funny story to share.
Okay.
The technology of AI, we mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Even folks who speak English as a second language, we've had some guests on who it's a very clipped. You can understand them. The AI takes it and transcribes it wonderfully. Andy, the AI hates your Southern accent.
Oh, I bet it does.
It misspells all sorts of things.
Yeah. I was in New England and this week and I have that Southern accent and they have an accent too, but I never talk about their accent, but they talk about my accent. And I think, it's too late for me to worry about that.
I'm originally from Chicago, and I can go up there and they're like, wow. And then I come back down here and like, oh, you've been back at home for a week or so, haven't you?
Yeah.
pick back up on dub airs and a few things like that. So, okay. Well, Andy, thanks for coming in. We always like to, do a little something with our hosts and cross-promotion the show, doing business in Bentonville, podcast videos. I'm literally repping them both.
You're doing great.
So, guys, thanks for joining us. This has been Autofocus, and I am Dan Kraft. This is Andy Wilson, the host of Doing Business in Bentonville. And for podcast videos, have a good one.
All right. Thank you.